Welcome inside another live edition of the Deep Look podcast. We're doing it a day early this week. It's Monday, August 26th. Alongside Keith Rayner, I am Charlie Eisenhood. Keith, I got to go with the shades this week. I know I look a little ridiculous up here.
A little.
Can you guess the reason? Can you guess the reason that I'm wearing sunglasses inside?
Oh, to block out the haters, for sure, right? It's got to be to block out the haters.
I don't want these wind chill people coming at me. I'm flying to Australia in about 5-6 hours from now, and so I am doing all jet lag treatments possible. Let me plug, this is not a paid ad. The Time Shifter app, okay? It's a little expensive, but I'm telling you, it tells you when to avoid light, when to get light, when to sleep, when you can nap, when you can have coffee, all these kinds of things, and it just gives it to you in one whole thing to help eliminate the jet lag. The last time I traveled a really long distance from home, I went to Vietnam, I don't know, sometime like 2017, 2018. I was down and out for like 3 days. So I now am pretty serious about trying to do the advanced things to get ready for avoiding the jet lag. So I'm taking my Sunset Lake CBD gummies with me, my sleep gummies, and ready to go. So
you beat me to the plug. They're not even sponsoring this show right now, but like I was gonna say, get them Sunset Lake CBD gummies.
I genuinely am doing
help
that.
You doze off at the right time.
Yes. Well, big show today. We got a lot to do. We got to talk UFA Championship weekend. We've got to get you ready for the Pro Championships, final weekend of the regular season in the USAU TCT coming up. It's Labor Day. I mean, we're back to school. College is going to be back in session. College Ultimate season right around the corner, Keith. And of course, we have the World Ultimate Championships starting in 6 days from now over in Gold Coast, Australia. So super exciting episode today. We're going to begin with UFA Championship weekend. How about this? Against the odds, underdogs in both games, the Minnesota Wind Chill take down the title for the first time ever. They beat the DC Breeze 16-13 in an incredibly windy semifinal on Friday. And then they held off the Carolina Flyers 17-16 final score in the final on Saturday. If you missed it, we did an Out the Back episode on Friday night or Saturday morning. I don't remember now, talking through the semis, and we can get into that a little bit more. But Keith, can you believe that the Wind Chill are the team that walks away from the UFA season with a title?
I always believe, Charlie. I mean, I was number one Minnesota Wind Chill supporter, I feel like, as far as anybody can tell. Check the record, check the receipts, see if I ever denigrated this incredible franchise. And, it's ironic for them to find success on this, the windiest weekend in championship weekend history. Perfectly appropriate. But the final was pretty wild. I mean, both games really, they came out and put their foot down immediately. I mean, they came out in the final. The final was stunning. The Carolina side just like dropped city to open the game, and Minnesota was happy to sit there and collect free layup after free layup. I mean, have you ever heard the story of the time that Lisa Leslie scored like 104 points in the first half of a high school basketball game? You ever heard that story?
I can't say that I have, but it sounds like something that could happen. That's crazy.
Well, basically, she just continuously stood in front of the inbounds pass and blocked it and laid it in over and over again. Like, not literally, that's the only thing that happened, but that happened numerous times. It'll help you pad your stats to sit there and just like stop the inbounds pass repeatedly because you're the biggest, strongest person, fastest person on the court. But that's a little bit what it felt like. Just like, we're just going to turn over right in front of our own goal line. Here's a free layup. We're just going to do it again. I mean, it was a remarkable start to the game, and credit to Carolina for fighting back to even make it as close as it was. But Minnesota holds on and certainly earned the win, even in the strange conditions that we saw in Salt Lake.
That the first 10, 15 minutes of that final, that was just an embarrassment from Carolina. An absolute embarrassment. You can't go into a windy game. They had 4 straight stone cold drops to begin the game, all immediately leading to wind chill breaks. And we're not talking about pressure. We're not talking about, guy right there, maybe gets a hand on it. No, like in the lane, wide open unders, clank. And then they played absolutely no defense whatsoever after the turnovers and basically gave up 2 upwind breaks right away. And they were never able to get back out of that hole, although they came close. Look, you can make all the excuses you want if you're Carolina. You can make all the excuses you want if you're DC, but the wind chill were the better prepared team for the windy conditions. And it's that simple. The DC Breeze want to come out and play their little tiki-taka, beautiful, Barcelona offense. And it turns out that's hard to do when there's 30-mile-per-hour wind in your face. Do I think if this whole weekend was played again in what we might call normal conditions, a 5 to 10 mile per hour wind, something like that we would have the same result? No chance. This wind chill team got destroyed by New York just a few weeks ago. And DC was the best team this season, but you know what? You have to go. You have to not have the hubris to think you can just win your way when the conditions are calling for something different. And I think the Breeze paid the price. Congrats to the wind chill, but this is going to feel like an outlier result for a long, long time.
You were at that New York game, correct?
I was.
You were physically present? Yeah.
I was physically there.
You have been brainwashed by being there. And we do this all the time. You and I watch a lot of Ultimate. We're at a lot of big games or whatever. When you were there and you see a result, it just like magnifies in your mind. I feel like that result has just like completely convinced you that this Minnesota team is fraudulent, and that the New York dominating them just feels like it's taking an outsized slice of your impression.
I don't even think they're
Minnesota.
Fraudulent. I just think that they're nowhere near the class of the DC Breeze on a neutral field without monster wind.
Let me tell you,
is that a crazy take? I really don't think it is.
No, I mean, nowhere near might be the crazy part. But I was with you. I picked DC. I thought they should be the favorites. I did pick Minnesota to play that game close, so I obviously have a higher estimation of them than you do, especially relative to DC. But I think that basically painting them as outside, like not in the same league as DC, feels strong to me based on the evidence we have at this point with that New York game withstanding. I mean, yeah. Will Brandt ends up getting championship weekend MVP, but the guy who I need to sing the praises of a couple different Minnesota guys, and one guy is a guy who I don't know if I'm publicly on record, but like I've never really been a big fan of the way he plays. But Josh Klein has a superpower, and he is awesome in the wind. I mean, this guy was awesome. Ripping it.
He was awesome.
He was so good.
Like,
I mean, he was crushing it.
In a game,
I have to give his flowers.
Here's what it is. And I think this is true about the wind chill, and it's part of the reason they were successful this weekend. They are a higher turnover than average team against good programs. You can go tell me that they didn't turn it over against Detroit. I don't want to hear about it. Josh Klein, his problem as a player historically has been that while he has this super plus upside of being able to hit some insane shots and power a disc up into the wind, he also turns it over too much. But when turnovers are a dime a dozen, like they were in these conditions, their semifinal against DC had more than 75 turnovers combined between the two teams. It just doesn't hurt you to have those turns. So Klein being able to throw 40, 50-yard upwind hucks is a huge, huge advantage, even if you turn over half of them, because just being able to get one of them is so valuable relative to everything else. And I also, I have to give the wind chill credit. I thought they played very good defense against the Flyers for most of that final. They put pressure in the lanes. They didn't make anything comfortable or easy. And, the Flyers tried to start hucking their way out of it, which worked for them against Seattle, but it didn't work against a more athletic, bigger wind chill team. And ultimately they fell short. Who knows what happens in that game if Carolina doesn't have, 5, 6 horrible turnovers at the very start of the game. But that's what happened.
Yeah, Gordon Larson also had a great game. Will Brandt bounced back from a really poor semifinal showing to play really well in the final. They got a huge guy from Quinn Snyder, who also had a nice game. And Minnesota didn't really. It wasn't like somebody went out there and took over the game. They did their thing and won their way. So a lot of credit to what they're going to end up with as a title, whether or not people want to put an asterisk on it. They deserve a lot of credit either way.
What do you make of the fact that DC comes up short after pretty clearly looking like the best team? I mean, they had blown out Carolina. They got through the East with relative ease. They got the big end of the season win against New York. They beat Boston. They'd done it all. I mean, the only real big blemish for them was the loss to Salt Lake early in the season on basically their literal opener. They were the best team. What happened?
They were not ready for the conditions. They looked out of sorts. I think there was some speculation that once we had a sense of what the women's going to be like, that maybe it could play to their strengths. I mean, this is a team that doesn't need the deep game to expand the field. I mean, they're so good at attacking in small spaces. I think there was a thought that they could dink and dunk their way in the end zone over and over again and continue to be a fairly low turnover team in those conditions. And that just was not the case. And they were not able to execute their offense. And I think that's got to be a disappointing thing for them. I wonder if it implies anything about how the DC men's division offense is going to operate in windy conditions in general. But tough showing for them, and definitely disappointing, especially when they've had to fight for so long to even get to this point. They finally break through the wall and immediately run into another one.
Chicago Machine behind the scenes strongly advocating for a return to Sarasota for the national championships. Crazy. I think Minnesota was third on the list for me of who I thought could win this weekend. Seattle's at the bottom, then Minnesota, then Carolina, then DC. And I thought it was kind of a drop off after Carolina. But amazing performance. They showed up when they had to. The focus and intensity was there from their players, from their coaching staff. They really, really wanted it. And I think kind of a hard lesson for some of these other teams. You don't just get to walk in and win because you're good. You have to play well. You have to play to the conditions. You have to play with strategy. And I think that didn't happen for DC. And for Carolina, you have to execute. You can't have 4 drops in your own half and then immediately just like jog around on defense and give up breaks. Terrible. Very interesting championship weekend. And man, let's maybe not go back to Salt Lake. I mean, the wind was on Friday was just crazy, Keith.
Didn't Bryce Merrill say this? Like
75 turnovers.
It's never been this bad. Like this is classic big time ultimate, right? You show up somewhere for your big game and this is what you get. Classic.
That's what you get. Any final thoughts on the UFA season?
At least it was exciting, right? Like we got a pretty exciting regular season, maybe the best ever. The championship weekend didn't quite deliver, but due to extraneous circumstances, I think people are going to be pretty jazzed about the potential parity in the league going into next year.
All right, it's time to turn our attention back over to club. We've got the Pro Championships coming up this weekend. Keep in mind, teams will be without their Worlds players, which Worlds starting Saturday, Pro Champs also starting Saturday. So if you're kind of handicapping teams or thinking about who's going to take it down this weekend, you got to go in with that kind of grain of salt. There's definitely some bid implications from this tournament, especially like in the mixed division. And it should be interesting. A little smaller than normal, a little bit weaker than normal. We've got, I'll just run off the teams really quick because there's only 8 teams per division. In the men's division, Truck, Machine, Bravo, Ring, Dig, Rhino, Revolver, and Chain. Pretty darn good. Mixed is Shame, Hybrid, Exist, Amp, Slow, Dragon, Shine, and Rally. And women's is Scandal, Molly, Phoenix, Bent, Riot, Parcha, Grit, and Juicebox. Who the hell is Juicebox? Charlotte and
They're from
Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I'm good for Juicebox. I'm happy for them. It's kind of like when Freaks went to US Open. Like Freaks got a sweet win.
Hey,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen for Juicebox.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
I do think not a great sign that you can't even get 8 like top tier teams for pro champs, but I guess that's the story this season with Worlds kind of taking up a lot of oxygen.
I honestly, Charlie, I know we're about to get into our picks. I kind of neglected to think about the fact that WC rosters were going to affect. Do you know? Presumably.
Oh wow! So I just gave you a leg up. Damn it! I should have kept it to myself.
Are the Colombians out for this?
Of course.
That really impacts the women's division.
Yes. Molly's going to be down like 4 of their best players.
Oh my gosh! I got to redo. I got to make some changes.
I mean, I don't even know what you do. Like all these top teams are going to be missing great players. Like this definitely feels like a week. Like, is anybody on Riot on the Worlds team?
Off the top of my head, I
don't think so. I don't think so. So like they're definitely pickable this weekend. If you want to like, we already know they're kind of having an up year, but with Molly in front of them in their pool, definitely seems like a winnable game. Because Claire is out, and the Cardenas twins are out. Still going to be a good team, but it's hard to rebuild your offense on the fly like this. So
yeah.
There's the pools: Scandal, Phoenix, Bent, Grit, Molly, Riot, Parcha, Juicebox. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that Riot and Molly are going to go 1-2. It's just a question of the order.
Is it obvious? I mean, they're going to be missing the most key players, presumably. Although, man, I am going to enrage our producer Lizzie Sue, who constantly reminds us and says how can we never talk about the fact that Phoenix has 4 Worlds players? Well, I'm going to do it, but as a bad side, as a bad thing.
Yeah,
we finally mentioned it, but
there's no way they win. But like Bent's missing Gina and Jenny.
Yeah.
Scandal's missing Trope and Cammy. Like our producer just put rage in the chat. So I don't know. You tell me. That's why this is a weird tournament. Like this is not your typical pro championships.
Yeah, yeah, this is rough. Okay. So I just redid my picks. Before I had thought about what I thought was going to happen in pool play, but now I think I'm going to just go with the top 4 seeds making semis. I was kind of high on Bet before I thought about the Worlds thing, but I can't back Bet since they're Worlds players. I think Molly and Scandal are still going to be good enough to get there. I think that's the same is true for Phoenix, who's still going to have some of their key players, and Riot will be the team least impacted. So that's my logic for the 4 of them making the semis.
Gimme. Yeah, I'm still going to take the top 4 seeds to make semis. I've got Riot, and it's really hard to decide between Molly and Phoenix. I think both teams missing key pieces. I'm going to take Phoenix. I'm going to take Riot and Phoenix in the final, and I'll take Riot to win it all.
Yeah, wait. Let me make sure I am thinking about how the
tournament's also close to home for Phoenix. That's helpful. It's in Rock Hill, right? Which is like 30 minutes south of Charlotte, and is becoming a disc sport mecca. Got pro champs here, and then next month win? USDGC and the United States Disc Golf Championships. I'm taking Riot over Phoenix.
Right. Okay. You're taking Riot over Phoenix. I'm going to go with Molly over Phoenix.
Okay.
I think Molly's got enough in the tank.
Aren't they going to play? Oh, you're saying Riot wins the pool. Whatever. I'm going to let you just hang yourself.
Phoenix.
You go ahead. You go do whatever you need.
I'm
Okay.
saying Phoenix wins the pool.
Got it. Got it. All right, let's move on. Let's go over to the mixed division. Hybrid, Dragon. Well, the pools are Hybrid, Amp, Exist, Shine, Dragon, Shame, Slow, and Rally. And I think I got to pull up the Frisbee rankings. Latest rankings are up. Thanks to Cody Mills. Appreciate all his hard work. Slow and Shine, last two teams in right now. Rally sitting at 20, 4 spots back. Some seriously important games coming up, not only in pool play, but also in consolation for all of those bottom 3 teams. Probably the most important thing about the mixed division this weekend.
and it's at this tournament of all tournaments. So like, the rankings aren't going to account for the people who are missing from these various rosters. So if Rally goes out there and, gets a win over Exist without, like it looks like a normal win over Exist or whatever, or Hybrid's going to be missing a bunch of people.
Hybrid is missing Shampoo. I think that's it.
Just Shampoo.
Dragon's going to be missing DeClerc.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is going to be missing Jade McLaughlin. Exist is going to be missing Abby Chang, but like it's definitely a lesser impact than in the women's division.
Is Amp's got to be missing Lindsay McKenna, right? And
Paul Raha's not playing with them anymore, so Ing and McKenna, but Ing's not playing there anymore, so just McKenna.
Ing, and Paul Owens. Paul Owens is the other big person they'll be missing.
Sure. Owens is not on the team unless they.
Well, he's not on the roster.
Added him later.
He's not on the tournament roster. So.
Gotcha. Okay, well let's get
the
to
mixed
picks.
division feels a little more insulated.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, I'm gonna take. Oh man, mine is Skunk Hybrid. I'm gonna take. I think we're gonna get the Shame bounce back. I think everybody sold on Shame too early. Do I still believe in Dragon? I'm gonna take Shame, Hybrid, Dragon, and Slow. Let me get a surprise run from Slow to to make semis. 3 teams from the same pool.
I'm gonna go Hybrid, Dragon, Shame. I like the bounce back idea there. And Amp. I mean, they're the best teams. I think Exist minus Abby is, they can still play well. They could still make semis for sure. But I like the chances of the teams at the top. I've got in the finals, I'm going Dragon and Shame. And I got Dragon winning. I think it's great for the narrative if Dragon wins.
Yeah, I originally had that same pick, and then I reversed it with the loss of DeClerc. So I'll take Shame over Dragon, but I'll keep.
Who's more important to their team, DeClerc or McLaughlin?
Or Jade McLaughlin? It's true. I will say that I think McLaughlin is obviously super important, but I do think Shame has the pieces to replace what McLaughlin does for them. Like they have other really athletic, speedy cutters. I think they can manage that. I honestly feel like none of these teams would surprise me to make semis. Maybe Exist most of all. I think they've been kind of unimpressive. Maybe Slow is really the biggest surprise. But like this any of these teams can make it. Especially, I mean, obviously you only have to win one game in quarters.
I just love that the reason to root and think that Slow, Shine, and Rally could do well is because they have an incredible incentive to do so.
Yeah. And we've kind of been waiting for all 3 of them.
Yeah. It's true.
I don't know. Fading Amp is probably a terrible plan. I probably should fade like
it has been most of the season and pretty much throughout history. Okay, let's move on. Men's division, a little bit more stacked up, but also, of course, plenty of teams missing pieces. And your pools are Truck, Ring, Revolver, Bravo, and Machine, Rhino, Dig, and Chain. So do we want to talk about some of the missing pieces?
Yeah, who's missing?
Truck is missing.
Hit me with...
Truck is missing everyone. I mean, Jasper
A
Tom,
truckload of
Christian
players.
Boxley, Thomas Edmonds, Troy Holland, Johnny Malks, AJ Merriman, all out for Truck. Machine is missing Nate Goff. I think that's it. So they feel like
OJ Samar has got to be missing too.
Thank you. Yes,
fact,
I forgot to consider the Canadians. And
their other yeah. They're European guys.
Bonet's playing Truck right now, right?
Yeah.
He'll be out.
Desmarais would be the one that they're
Desmarais as well for Machine. That's right. Although, has he played with them yet? Did he actually?
Yeah, he played.
I guess he did at the beginning of the season, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else is here?
Well, Rhino
Ring is missing guys. Gooch, Durs, Saul Yannick, who missed this weekend as well. Ben Dameron, Eric Taylor, they're all out.
That's a lot.
Like, basically, the top teams get nerfed more than the bottom teams.
Well, is that true? I mean, like, Dig's going to be missing a lot of people, right?
Chain is missing Holzmeyer. That's it. You said Dig? Yeah, I mean, Dig is missing Mac.
They're going to be missing Rowan. Yeah, a bunch of guys.
And Rowan. And, yeah, I mean, like, the list I'm referencing has last year's teams, so I might be missing a couple people. I don't think it's that bad for Dig.
They still have Babbitt.
Babbitt
Orion
didn't try
Cable.
out.
Yeah.
Orion either didn't try out or didn't make the team. I can't remember. So, I don't know. To me, what about Rhino? Rhino's missing Hatchet and Raffi. And these are just out people who are out for the U.S. national team, not for other reasons. It's going to be a weird one. You know, it's Labor Day weekend. Like, sometimes people will have a wedding or they have plans or whatever. But I like Machine a lot here. I'm going to take Machine to make semis because, you know, they're still going to have Joe White, right? I think I'm going to go Machine, Dig. Is it crazy to say Revolver? Like, Truck and Ring are going to be shells of themselves. Shells of themselves. Who's out for Revolver? Michael Ing, Eli Kearns, Calvin Brown, but Calvin's playing for Pony. So give me Revolver. And then Bravo's missing Nethercut, Finer. Gosh, it's so tough. I'll take Revolver and Truck, Machine and Dig.
Okay. I'm gonna go Machine and Dig as well. Making a late change to Dig here. I'll take Rhino anyway, and I'll take Bravo. They still got Kins. They're gonna be good. They're getting Grant Lindsley, I think, this weekend. I'm going with Bravo.
I like it. I think it's totally plausible.
And for my winner, I'm gonna take Machine over Bravo.
I'm gonna go Machine over Dig. Machine over Dig. Interesting weekend coming up. We are going to be streaming 3 games per round. So tune in for live streams all weekend long. We'll have commentary on the finals as well. 3-day tournament. It's kind of a weird to have an 8-team event go for 3 days. But that's what's happening. So they play pool play on day 1, with including games at 6 p.m., which is kind of crazy. And then they have 2 rounds of quarters and then 2 rounds of semis on day 2, and then just the finals on day 3. It's all streaming live on ultiworld.com. So literally couldn't be a better time to get a subscription than right now. Grab yourself an all-access subscription. Watch Pro Champs. That's a little appetizer for the World Championships, which also begin on Saturday. But the time shift means that you can watch Pro Champs during the day and then switch over and watch Worlds at night, because Eastern time is 14 hours behind Australian Eastern Standard Time, I think is the time zone. Keith, you better block in. You better get some coffee, dog.
Hey, I just want to say, How about everybody that subscribes between now and the end of the show? Charlie will wear the sunglasses for another episode.
Oh my god. Fair deal. Fair deal. We'll check the receipts. Okie doke. That's Pro Champs. Any final thoughts on this Pro Champs? It's going to be a strange one for sure.
We're both mad that this tournament's happening at the same time as WC. What is
a complete
how
blunder? I don't know that you would have solved the problem by having this tournament last weekend, because I think a lot of Worlds players still would have been out, but at least everyone's attention could have been on it instead of wanting to focus on Worlds. So anyway, it is what it is. I don't understand why these scheduling things seem like they have to be so difficult for everyone. Like, can't people just sit down and be like, hey, here's the dates we're thinking? It's not that hard.
A clandestine
all right.
meeting between all the shadowy figures who run Ultimate.
It's time for our trivia question of the week.
Oh, it's World Championships hype week, so of course we gotta have a trivia question about the World Championships, and this is kind of fallen by the wayside, maybe for the better. So maybe I'm dredging it back up. But back when the World Championships site was selected, back even when the U.S. teams were coming into shape, there were some thoughts about the expenses related to traveling to Australia. I feel like that issue's kind of died down, but I think this is the second time that Australia has hosted a World Championship. What country has hosted the most World Championships? I believe for me, that's going to be WUCC, the Club Championships, WGC/WUC, this event, as well as the Under-24 and U20 Championships. I don't think I included the World Games. Maybe I did include the World Games, but I don't think that's going to impact this anyway. So what country has had the most World Championships that they've hosted?
I'm going to think about it. All our listeners are going to think about it. We're going to take a break. The answer on the other side. We'll be right back.
Whether you're gearing up for a TCT event or Summer League, YCC competition or Masters, Breakmark can help your team get kitted out. Their bundles get you everything your team needs, and each one comes with a free reversible and 5-panel hat. Whatever your game, Breakmark.com is the place to get your team ready this season.
Alrighty. Welcome back to Deep Look. We are live on YouTube every single week, normally Tuesday noon Eastern time, but a little funky right now with Australia travel coming up. It's probably going to be weird again next week. We'll talk about upcoming schedule stuff at the end of the show. Trivia question of the week: which country has hosted the most World Championships? This is tricky. My guess, there's a bunch of countries that are I think are on the table. Australia, UK, US. But my answer is Canada. I think it's Canada because I'm thinking back into the past for like big worlds, and I know that they've had like Vancouver Worlds, and the first U24s was in Canada. I just think that there's been enough in Canada that in Europe, right, they spread it around. Like 1 year it's in France, 1 year it's in Spain, 1 year it's in the UK. So like they kind of get diluted, right? If you picked Europe as a continent, I think that'd be the easy answer. And Australia is just too far away. They only do the stuff there like once every 10 years or something. So my answer is Canada.
Oh, Europe as a continent would have like 20.
Dominant.
The US and Canada have 5 apiece, tying them for second. So the answer is, in fact, the UK, who has 6 events they've hosted.
Oh, it's pretty close.
Yeah, very close. Japan and Germany each with 4. I think those are the other ones. People forget the US had one in Hawaii. Like, should that even count? I know it's part of the US, but it's like basically in it. It's so far away.
Wait, when was that?
I'd have to look back at the dates, but they did have an event in Hawaii.
I mean, seems fun. It's like fun for U.S. players.
It was
It's
like 2002.
good
I mean,
for
people could actually
good for
afford it.
like Asian countries, right? Like it's like not that far. It's not that far from Australia, all things considered. Uh, it's probably pretty awful for Europe.
Except that
Let's
they
see
get to
if
go.
anybody get it in the chat. We got a couple of UK guesses. We got a
Yeah, we
Jim
do.
Lloyd also going with the GB, aka UK. TD said Ohio, a country unto itself, and certainly if you look in the last like 5 years, that's the truth. World's Clubs
Shout out
2020,
to Ohio.
2002, Nasser and Bay Vogel, who we're going to be talking about in just a second in our Worlds preview, and we're going to get there right now. Keith, it's time. World Championships, first time in 8 years. It's finally here. Been thinking about this tournament for well over a year at this point, and the rosters are locked. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to begin in the mixed division. We've got mixed, open, and women's. Also guts. I'm picking the U.S. in the guts. I'll just get that right out in front right now. Keith, you got a guts pick?
They took it out of the title, but they couldn't take it out of the game.
I think the Albuquerque crew about to be out there again, winning the Guts World Championship.
I love that you get to rep.
Here we are, mixed division. Take a look. There are your pools, and I just turned my camera off instead of toggling my. There we go. U.S., Japan, Austria, Switzerland, Argentina, Australia, Italy, New Zealand, China, and India. Canada, GB, Germany, Korea, and Panama. France, Colombia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Chinese Taipei, and Malaysia. So that is your 4 mixed pools. They go to power pools. You got to finish top 3. There's obviously you have a long journey to get into the bracket. But Keith, thoughts on these initial pools?
There's some interesting groupings. I mean, you see Australia and Italy in the same pool. Also, as I noted with Edward Stevens back when pools dropped, we talked about that on the show while you were gone. Tough that Australia and New Zealand I think are in the same pool in like every division. How does that happen? So tough draw for them. But yeah, that Australia and Italy makes for a really compelling top of the pool. In that pool. That's probably the thing that draws my attention the most here.
I'm going to be curious to see how Japan looks in every division. I mean, I think it feels like the team we have the least insight into, because a lot of these other teams we see either because their players are playing in U.S. club or because they come to the U.S. for the U.S. Open. Obviously, there's a very robust European competition that's going on all the time. So we kind of get a look at a lot of these teams. Japan feels like it's in its own ecosystem a little bit. And so I don't think that they're what they once were. I think we saw some evidence of that at the World Games a couple years back. But I think they're still always going to be a dangerous team, always going to be in that medal conversation. How do they handle the USA? I think, US is probably like 6.5 point favorites in that game, but I'm still intrigued.
Batch says Pool C is the pool of death with 3 elite teams. I don't know, man. I don't look at the Germany roster, and not that I'm an expert on German Ultimate. It seems like their women's division and open division teams are kind of stacked. I don't know if I could put Germany into the elite tier right now, but it should be competitive for the top 3 spots in that pool.
And of course, I just want to let people know you can go to results.wifdiff.sport and you can check out the world's like whole score reporter. All the rosters are there. I think I can just go ahead and drop a link in the chat. Why not? I'm going to drop a link in the YouTube chat right now. And so you can go there and check it out if you want to like look up the rosters yourself, because sometimes some countries are stacking their mixed team. Other countries are kind of like have their B team players on their mixed team. So, it depends a little bit on how deep the pool is in every country. But Keith, when you, I know we've talked about this already on the show, but like just looking at the way things are going to shape up here for power pools and whatnot, who are some teams that you're looking for as having a chance to make a push to a title besides the U.S., which is obvious?
You beat me. I was just going to make there's some America team that I think should be okay. I mean, I think when I look at the teams that I'm really expecting to contend for a title, I think it's probably like after the US, the next tier, France is going to be getting all the hype. I think that France is a perfectly credible team in the four spot. They have a lot of talent on that roster. But I think it's France. It's Italy, who's one of those countries who's stacking their mixed team. I've long waited for a really strong team to try and a nation with a lot of ultimate prowess to try and do this. I think this is a great thing to try. I'll be curious to see how it actually works out for them. And Canada probably is where I would cut off that tier with credit to Australia, GB, Japan, potentially Germany. Like those are the teams I think are challengers who could break their way into that group. But for me, I'm looking at the US and then some combination of France, Italy, and Canada as your primary gold medal contention teams out of the gates.
Spot on, Keith. Spot on. I mean, I think I genuinely think Italy and France have the opportunity to challenge the U.S. If they play their best game. Not that that's going to be easy. I think the U.S. is still the heavy favorite to win the title. But when you look at the France roster and Ancelon, Bourneau, both Bourneaus, I should say, Nasser Vogel, previously mentioned. Sasha Poit-Sokolski, like they are good and they look sharp. Meanwhile, we've seen Italy looking pretty darn good in preparations for this tournament. Scassieri was awesome at the U.S. Open. Barzazzi has been a breakout player in Europe over the last couple of seasons. Andrea Fontini, like they're a great team. Gasparini, Rossi, like this is basically all the best players in Italy.
They definitely are a team that could end up being the best push against the US. I think that the like I said that a lot of people will be on France, but don't sleep on Canada. I mean they're going to be pretty strong. And then like I mentioned, GB and Australia. I think Australia, you got to give all the teams, the Australian national teams, a little home cooking. I think that's probably going to boost them.
They don't have to wear sunglasses during the day in meetings.
They still might. Who's the most likely Australian to be wearing sunglasses while they watch this show? I think that the women matching players on Australia are strong, but I wish I had a little more familiarity with male matching players. There's some older names I know here, but I think it's clear that a lot of their top players from that community are playing with the open team. But you look at the women matching players here. Kaede Yoshida is the name that jumps off the page as addition to them, but some pretty familiar names: Mish Phillips and Holly Reeve, Sarah Brereton, and Bex Palmer, some vets. Yeah, I think that this Australia team could be good. I think they're a team capable of making semis.
Yeah, I mean that Australia-Italy game is going to be must watch. So noting just format wise, you see the top 3 teams from pools A and C will go to the power pool E. Top 4 teams in that 6-team power pool advance to the quarters. Same thing is true for pools B and D advancing to pool F. Top 4 out of those 6 advance. So, it's you got to start off by finishing inside that top half in your first pool. Should be a lot of fun. Let's make our actual semis picks here, Keith. You want to lock them in?
Yeah. Obviously, I'll take the U.S. And I'll take France, who I think is going to assert themselves as the second best team. And yeah, then I think I'm going to stick to the chalk here. I think there's a chance for those next 3 or 4 teams to bust in here, but I believe in Canada, and I think Italy's experiment is going to pay off purely with their international talent and experience. So I'm going to take the 4 that we've talked about as the real contenders to make semis and avoid an upset.
And I'm going with the same 4 teams. The question that I have is really, how do these teams shake up? Yeah, and like how do they shape up in the power pool to get seeding? Like getting the 1 seed out of pool F, right? The power pool that pools B and D fill into is going to be so critical, right? So that, Italy-France game that we'll anticipate in power pools is going to be such a big deal, assuming those teams live up to the billing. because I think getting that top spot means you avoid the USA most likely in a semifinal matchup, and you would only see them in the final. So that's going to be critical if you are trying to get that medal spot. It takes a little pressure off, not having to see the U.S. early. So at the end of the day, if you want to win a gold medal, you're going to have to go through them one way or another. So I do think it's so hard to decide. I'm going to go with the USA versus France in the final, and I've got USA taking it down over France in a game that will be closer than you expect. France has been balling out on the international stage over the last 12 months.
I think that's kind of the chalk. I think there is some chance that France is closer to the U.S. than the other countries are to France. I think that's possible when you look at
that's disrespectful to Italy. Roster.
Well, I'm not taking France or Italy. I'm going with the upset. Take us back to the old days. All North American final. I'm going with Canada getting the upset to make the final. This is I would say high variance Canadian team. I think that they can really go on runs with some of their great athletes, but they also have some really seasoned vets to help them steady the ship. So I think you can see this team make a run. I'm taking Canada to the final, but they're not going to beat the US. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they have an awesome semifinal and then are out of steam by the time they get into the final and get run over by the US. That wouldn't shock me.
All right. Well, there's the picks in the books. We got USA winning it in the mixed division. Let's move on to the women's division. A little bit smaller division. Some stacked teams here. Take a look at our pools. USA, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, France, and China in Pool A. Over in Pool B, Colombia, Canada, Germany, Great Britain, Singapore, and Chinese Taipei. Top 2 teams in each division will advance to Pool C. You go to Pool C, the top 3 continue on. Check that. The top 2 advance to the semifinals. So there's 2 power pools, and you got to finish top 2 in your power pool. So then it's straight to semis. There is a crossover game. So it's essentially like a pre-semis round. And if you win, you like the high crossover games, those are elimination games. Winners move on into the semis. So that's the deal. Finish top 2 in the power pool, lock up a semi spot, or you win your crossover. Keith, what do you make of the women's division?
Well, I have one key question for you, Charlie. This to me is the question to open the women's division with. Who should be the favorite? I want the
USA.
Chat's opinion too. Who do you think should be the favorite in this division?
USA.
Charlie says it confidently.
I
Chat,
think.
What do you think? Who should be the favorite?
I'm kind of surprised they made Colombia the 2 seed after USA lost, but I guess they just don't take into account these kind of preseason results, which is fine. I mean, but obviously Colombia gets the win at TEP, but I just think with the weight of history, you have to put the USA as the favorite coming in, even if that means they're only like 1.5 point favorites in that game against Colombia, which is probably what I put the number at right now, pre-tournament.
They're 1A and 1B to me. It's
I think that's
really
reasonable.
a toss up. I think that you can make the case that it should be Colombia, given that they have the most recent head-to-head between the 2 teams. I don't really know exactly who should be the favorite. Like I honestly feel like it's a coin toss. I know it's a cop out. I think if I had to pick, I would say the US, but if the 2 teams are against each other, I don't know that I'd give points to either side.
Does anybody else even have a prayer? I think we're just on a
no.
We're just waiting for this game in the women's division, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think another team really has a chance of winning gold.
This is a hype game. We've been building up to this game for 8 years. I mean, this is the chance for Colombia, right? How much longer does this?
How long have we been watching Madu and Vale? 10 years now.
I know. I mean, the Cardenas twins are going to keep this team competitive for at least another cycle, if not 2. But some of the other players on this Colombia team are going to age out of their prime 4 years from now. And this is Colombia's best chance. They're not going to win a World Games, most likely. They just don't have the male matching players. This is the one. This is the year. This is the peak of their window. They've already got the preseason, pre-Wook Road to Worlds win. Pretty epic.
Who else is in medal contention for you? How far do you go?
Canada, Germany, Australia. That's it. I mean, I don't know about Japan, but I think I fade them a little bit.
Yeah, definitely Canada and Germany, and I think definitely Australia. I do think your question marks really are about like Japan and GB, where they're at. So I think it's fair to put them a tier below those other three. I mean, this Germany team is really interesting. We've talked about how the last time we had a European like top 10 players in women's competition in Europe in that division, it was like 4 of the top 10 were German. So they are stacked. I don't know if they have the depth necessarily, but the top of their roster is fearsome. And when they put out their best 7, their best 10, they're going to be able to go up against anybody. They're a very scary team to me.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen many of the players on this German team. I mean, that Jinx Midnight team that played at Windmill had a lot of these players on it, and they looked elite. I'm super excited. Gerner, Prien, Walchak, of course, Charlotte Shaw. Like, I'm super excited to watch that team play. I mean, I don't even know if I should put Australia in the conversation. It's a stretch. Home team gets a little bit of a nudge, I guess, but I don't actually know that I think they can win. I think it's the medals are going to go to U.S., Colombia, and then either Canada or Germany. That's my thoughts.
That's definitely where the chalk is. I think Australia, yeah, with the home team boost, and then they've got obviously they've got Kat Phillips, but they have some good, Liv Carr and Carolyn Ma, Sally Yu, Lucy Geller.
I just look at that Germany roster. Look at the Canadian roster. They just don't have the horses, I don't think.
I like the depth on Australia's roster. Japan, again, the wild card.
I
think but they have Kanari Imanishi. They're just going to be good. Maybe Japan needs a little more consideration, especially given their history of performance in the women's division.
TD asks, is Mosquera playing? The answer is no. I don't know if she's hurt or decided not to play or what. I know she's been dealing with injuries over her career, but otherwise it's basically all the heavy hitters. So Cardenas twins, Cartagena, Ospina, Ale Torres, Ferrero. This is the squad that we know. But definitely a loss not to have peak Mosquera, because for about 6 months, I think she was the best player on earth.
Yeah, tough to lose a player like that to mostly to injuries. Looking at my picks here, I'm locking in the U.S., Colombia, and Germany. I feel very confident about that. The only one of the top 4 that I feel like maybe get exposed is Canada. Could they get caught on the wrong foot by an Australia or Japan? Yeah, they could, but I think that they have enough talent to make that unlikely. So I'll take Canada and stick with the big 4 in the women's division, just like it did in the mixed division.
Time to look. I'm going straight chalk. I mean, you already know what I'm going to pick: USA, Colombia, Germany, and Canada. I've got USA and Colombia in the final, and now the choice, the decision. Oh my gosh. The depth in the U.S. is going to be clearly superior. But I think I'm comfortable saying that the top end is definitely advantage Colombia. I look at the women's U.S. roster, a lot of good players. But, outside of Trope, Chastain, like Cammy. I just don't know if I see that like people that are going to really be able to go up there against the Cardenas twins and be able to win the matchups, you know? If it comes down to Colombia having to grind through a lot of tough games and they're out of legs, that's going to be a problem because I think the U.S. is going to be able to just play everybody even minutes, open lines, and just rock teams up to semis, basically. But man, I think I'm going to do it, Keith. I think I'm going to smash the Columbia button. It's time for the upset. We've seen it happen before in the women's division at the Worlds, and this Colombian team feels due. They feel due. So I'm taking Colombia to get the win over the United States in the women's division.
You son of a gun! And Sue, I'll protect our. I don't want us to get strikes on YouTube, but I shouldn't have let Charlie go first because that was my ace in the hole was Colombia to take it. I was really counting on you taking the U.S. so we could divert here, but I'm also going to take Colombia. The U.S. has not really found an answer to their style of play, and that's even accounting for the fact that a bunch of these people who play like in major U.S. Ultimate have played with various versions of these Colombian core, and they still haven't figured it out. Like this women's team is going to have Lisa P and Claire Chastain and Roddy Eater and Alyssa Perez. Like you would think that this group of people are going to be able to say, okay, we understand how this works, how the offense operates. Here's how we break it up. But that's never happened. Nobody has figured it out. Nobody's got the recipe, the sauce. The Colombians are talented. There are players. I'm not sure exactly what the Colombian rotation is going to end up looking like, how tight they'll get down the stretch, because the history shows that they're comfortable being like, okay, we're going to basically run the same, 9 people with a few subs to fill out the rotation. But there are some potential breakout players who people are less familiar with, I think, on this roster. If they get some of that, if some of these other players step up and add themselves to the rotation, it might be curtains. So I'm taking Colombia here.
Wow. Probably means U.S. is going to win. Deep look curse, but hey, I don't know. Go check out the video analysis on our YouTube channel. Max Charles laying down the analysis of the USA Colombia game back from April at TEP down in Colombia. And it was a barn burner then. It's probably going to be a barn burner again. Colombia had to make a big late comeback to win that game. Are they going to be clean enough? They've definitely got more practice time together. Is that going to be enough to overcome the strength of the depth of the United States? We're going to find out. All right. Del Rico says, wouldn't be surprised if Colombia puts out their universe lines to start the first couple of points to see if they can catch some breaks early. Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to see the Cardenas twins on every freaking point. Like, Mana's going to play almost every point. Like, what else you got to do? Like, you got to put your players out there and try to score those breaks. There may not be many in the game. All right, let's go on. Men's division. Open division. We have pools A. We got them up on the screen. Yeah, here we go. A, B, C, D. You got the power pools. You got the high power pool. You got the second power pool, and then you got the bottom power pools. So just to break down how that works, high power pool. Everyone advances. Top 2 from the high power pool go straight to quarters. Bottom 2 go to a crossover game. Pool F, same story. You go top 2. You go to you go straight to the quarters. Bottom 2 go to the crossover. And then the top 2 teams from the lower pools, G and H, advance to the crossover. So then you have a crossover game, which is essentially a pre-quarter, and then we have the quarterfinals after that. So that's the basic format. So you're not out of it even if you finish dead last in your initial pool. USA, GB, Austria, Hong Kong, Japan, Belgium, France, and China. Australia, Germany, New Zealand, Singapore, and Canada, Colombia, Italy, and Chinese Taipei. Pool of death, Keith? Is there one?
If I had to pick, maybe it's C. I think New Zealand could be spicy. They've gotten some chance to play against the Australian team. I think they've traded some wins there, and I think Australia's pretty good. So I think New Zealand could be spicy, and Germany will be solid, and Australia is going to be in medal contention. So that pool feels like the most dangerous one to me.
Interesting. I think I would say B with Japan, Belgium, and France. I know the France Open team is not like totally killer, but still just like the chances. Bonet's on that team.
We'll see. I mean, when I look at, I mean, I guess when I'm thinking
Belgium's
about
a title
the
contender.
medal contending teams, who's really in the mix? I mean, maybe you go
medal?
5 teams deep. Yeah.
Well, obviously USA, Belgium, Australia, Canada, probably Germany.
GB's got to be in there.
Definitely. GB's really impressed me in the build up to this tournament.
And then
do you want to throw Colombia in there? Do you want to throw France in there? No.
I'll consider Japan purely because Charlie, he's back. He is back for another go around. The living legend himself, who I think every team should just be forced to give a wide open goal to, just out of respect for Masahiro Matsuno. The guy's amazing.
He's going to get some buckets.
How does he keep doing it? I mean,
how about
you got him and Gak running around?
47-year-old Tom Rogacki out there as one of the key O-line players for the Australian Open team. Stay tuned for some really cool features on him and some other players at Worlds that'll be coming out on our social media and YouTube channels very soon. And
his first Worlds was awesome. In the 90s.
I think Gak was like was involved in half their scores or something at US Open.
That's crazy. Out of control.
He's an absolute legend. If there was an international Hall of Fame that only took the true greats, the Bo Kittredges, players of that level, Gak is a first balloter.
Yeah, he's great. Belgium is kind of where I like start to wonder, like, are they going to really live up to it? I think the talent's there, but they're the team that I'm like, can they really break in, or are we looking at another top 4 strongest teams and everybody else?
I will admit that I'm a little worried about them. They don't have everyone. They still got some great players for sure. You know, Toby de Krane, who's been so great playing in the UFA this season, Ben Yonkers, Van de Wey. Like, I like the team. I just, when we were kind of building up to this tournament, I was like, this team could beat the US. And I look at this roster and I'm like, no chance. No chance. I don't think anybody's going to sniff this US team.
I need a healthy ref. A healthy ref Yonkers, please. Bring you. I wish.
I know. I know.
I don't know, man. I think that they got the chutzpah. They're confident. They believe that they can compete with the US. And I like that about them. They go out there and they go get it.
They're gonna shoot. They're gonna shoot. They're gonna swag out. And if the US comes out flat, I mean, for sure.
I'm taking for my semifinalists. I'm taking the USA. I'll take Canada. I'm taking Australia. And I'm going to go with Belgium. I'm going to take Belgium to make semis.
Yeah, I mean, for semis, I still think they probably are a favorite to make semis. I'm actually kind of torn. I have USA, Canada, and Belgium through to semis. I'm deciding about that last spot. Oh, it's so tough. I'm going to take GB. And you know what, Keith? I'm going USA over GB in the final. That's how impressed I've been by Great Britain.
I like that.
And I know they got murked by Canada in that end of the London tournament after beating them earlier. So I think Canada or Belgium's probably the chalk pick, but I really like what I've seen from Great Britain.
Very, very interesting. And mostly I like it because it's not the same pick as mine. I'm taking the US over Australia. I'll take the home team. I know that they weren't like blowing anybody away at the US Open, but they're gonna have a lot less miles traveled this time
And they're gonna
around.
have Tullet on the roster.
Right. They'll have Cupcake back. And that's gonna make a big difference. So I think that none of these other teams outside of the US have been so good that I feel like they're like a market favorite. So I feel like I could take the home team with some positive changes coming their way. I think you're going to see a team that's playing a little more dialed in than they were at the U.S. Open, where they felt a little loose for me. Rob Andrews was kind of quiet. I don't think he's going to stay that quiet by the time they're playing it.
I mean,
Worlds.
it's
We got
not
some
a bad
questions in the
strategy for
chat.
them to just launch bombs to him. Like, what other team's going to do about that?
I mean,
Play your strengths.
they weren't doing it in the thin air at the U.S. Open. So maybe they were like, oh, we can always do that. We don't
Ace
we don't
up
have
the
to practice
sleeve,
that.
Keith. You can't show them the playbook, even though everybody knows what the playbook is going to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not a big shock. Giant guy who could jump high skies everybody. Like it's not exactly a big secret. We got to ask about Italy and Colombia in the Open division. We mentioned Italy kind of stacking their mixed division roster. So I think they're missing a lot of the star players that could make their Open side perform
They're still going to be solid.
Yeah, and I think that's true for Colombia. They still got a Duque and Cantor. Like they're going to be good. But I don't really think that they can compete with the big dogs for medal spots.
Comment in the chat. Andres Ricarte. Colombia is going to be the dark horse of this world. Save this comment. He's throwing it out there, Keith.
All right, we're saving that. Go ahead and Sue, go ahead and screenshot that comment for when they finish ninth to pull that back up.
Oh my gosh, Keith.
It's real easy. It's easy to say when there's no cost, but we're bringing it back. I'm holding people accountable.
They got some ballers out there, Keith. Cuidado.
Yeah, they do. I just talked about
Cantor, Alba,
Edward Stevens is out here talking about Cantor is amazing.
Ford. They're solid.
I need Rama.
I think you're hating too much. They could definitely make semis. They could win their pool.
I need Rama.
Upset Canada.
I need Rama. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, there's our picks. They're in the books. So to recap, Keith's going USA over Australia. I'm going USA over GB. In the mixed division, Keith's going USA over Canada. I'm going USA over France. And we're both taking Colombia over the US. So in the women's division. So going to be very exciting. Make sure you tune in. It all starts next Saturday. The first game, the opener, will be on our YouTube channel. It's on Saturday at like 2:30 Australian time in the afternoon, which is going to be around midnight, 12:30 a.m. Eastern and 9:30 p.m. Pacific on Friday. Okay, so if you go to our event page, it will show you all of the game times in your local time zone. So that's the best way to keep up to date with when things are happening, because trying to translate the time zones takes a lot of effort. I'm going to be honest. All right. So before we go, got a cool thing. First of all, like and subscribe. Check it out. We've got more Worlds analysis coming your way as well. Worlds previews, many things coming to the website. So stay tuned for that. We have a new documentary about the Austin Torch. It's called Torched, and it's going to be available very soon, or already. Did it drop, Keith?
I'm not sure. I don't think it came out yet.
Yes, we're getting word. It did drop. So it's available now on Prime Video and Apple TV. So you can go and you can stream it yourself. This won some awards in a local film festival. So here's the trailer for the movie Torch. Check it out.
There's that word professional that men were owning and women weren't any part of that. So we were like, you know what? We need to insert ourselves into this conversation.
and we'd be playing on cow fields with cow patties. It's not the same.
There was some pro men's teams for quite a while in the AUDL and another league, and the Austin Soul is a men's team that had existed for quite a few years.
Yet again, in pro sports or sports in general, all the money and investment was going into the men's side. Oh, we'll invest in the men's first because that's the most popular, and then it'll trickle down, then maybe there'll be a women's opportunity someday.
If there is a space for men to play professional ultimate,
Why not us?
I think it's going to be hard every year. Like, well, we don't have this and we don't have that.
I would call us or compare us to a Bad News Bears, We're from Texas, which that's part of it.
Austin Torch, I feel like very much aligns with Austin.
Pushing for political equity, systemic changes.
It's not about me, it's about our team. It's about what are we here for? We're here for each other.
We're lighting a fire for the next generation.
All right, so there you go. The trailer for Torched. You can watch it now. If a lot of people watch it, there's a chance it could get picked up onto a bigger streaming service like Netflix. So you can check that out. Let's see. Sub bonus out the back. We're gonna do Beat Charlie Challenge chatter as we lock in our picks. How deep do the picks have to go, Keith? Are we picking crossovers?
Quarters, baby.
Just quarters. Just quarters. All right. So quarters and beyond for Worlds.
Plus some bonuses. We got some bonus. This is new for the Beat Charlie challenges. I got some sweet bonus questions for you.
Okay. And so Keith, is the Beat Charlie Challenge page going to drop today for people to put in their
it will
picks?
be out today. It will be out today.
So you already heard my semis and finals picks. So you know where I'm going there, but we'll go all the way down to quarters for all the divisions. And look forward to trying to get into that. I'm trying to win it all, Keith. One of these days, I'm going to win it all. I don't think I've ever been below 60th percentile. So first place. This is the day.
This is a tough one to do.
Perfect picks. All right. Letting you know about the schedule coming up. Next week, we are not going to have a traditional deep look because we're going to be in the middle of Australia doing Worlds, and I'm going to be 14 hours offset from Keith, so it's just not going to happen. But we are going to have daily wraparound shows from Australia out on our YouTube channel, so you can catch up on the day's action, and if you missed it the night before, you can catch up in the morning when you wake up and see what all transpired that day, some breakdowns, look at the pools, all that stuff. With our fantastic set of commentators down in the Gold Coast. And then Keith and I are going to jump on for a live out the back for subscribers, probably after Thursday's action in Australia, which will set us up for quarters. So probably at the point, and if stuff gets crazy, we reserve the right to do an extra sub bonus or an emergency pod or something like that. So never now, a better time to get yourself a subscription and tune in to Pro Champs this weekend, Worlds all of next week. I mean, the Discord is going to be absolutely popping off with Frisbee talk for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be an amazing stretch of Ultimate. And then we get right into Club Regionals coming up really soon. So looking forward to all of it. Shout out, safe travels to everybody who's traveling down to Australia for Worlds. Look forward to seeing many of you there. Come say hello, and it's gonna be a blast. The World Ultimate Championships for the first time in 8 years. Beat Charlie Challenge talk coming up in the Discord. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long from Deep Look. We'll talk to you from Australia. USA sweep odds. Pick 'em.